I'm here with Dr. Dan Fabricant and Kyle Turk of NPA. Dan Fabricant is the CEO and president of Natural Products Association, and Kyle Turk is the director of government affairs. We're getting ready to go to DC next week. We are ramped up. You guys are pre-gaming in South Carolina. Tell me about this house you're setting. You look like you just played golf.
Guilty as charged, Marcel. Good to see you. Good to be with you. Kyle drugged me to South Carolina. We're down here with Jeff Duncan to catch up on some issues. Hopefully make some birdies too. But it's a good thing. Congressman Duncan's a huge supporter of the industry, so I want to get the chance to support him.
That's amazing. Please say hello and our gratitude from the Pulse community and Team NMN, the entire Team NMN. Thanks him for we got his back. We appreciate him having ours on this. Can you update us, guys, on the state of the FDA? I'll call it a ban, but the situation with the FDA, right?
Kyle, you want to tackle the state of the responses to Congressman Duncan first?
Sure. So, as everyone knows, NPA sent in a citizens petition a few months back on the status of NMN. I've been working with a number of different congressional offices, both on the Senate and House side, to explore congressional oversight of FDA's decision on NMN. Congressman Duncan was supportive enough to send in an inquiry himself requesting what's called a Part 15 hearing to the FDA on their status for NMN. Unfortunately, he has not heard back yet, and ironically enough, the response from the FDA when he followed up with their office as to why they've missed their deadline is, well, we have our legal counsel reviewing the response. So I'll let your audience take that for what it might be.
So their communication, their comms aren't down. There hasn't been any kind of
below deadline though. Yeah, below deadline.
Just making sure that their phones are working.
Yeah.
Was this a landline call or an email?
Yeah. A landline call, I think. Yeah, I think it was a landline. I think it's a good sign.
Technology's still working, right? Okay.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah, FDA still has phones. They still have the Google. Their email still works. So yeah, that doesn't seem like it at times, but but I think it sends the message, the fact that they've got attorneys reviewing it, that they are. I think they see where this is going, which I think speaks to the merits of what we're doing here.
Okay, and we're going into this on Wednesday. Some people have some questions. Is this an action or pre-action, administrative action against all forms of NMN? Or there's been some question there because their letter states beta NMN, which is a crystalline form of NMN. Right. There are enzymatic forms, there are bioforms, there are different forms of NMN, liposomal forms. You can change the forms. You can adapt it, adjust it, and then let the body absorb it almost in the way that you would another substance like any vitamin B, like a niacin or an NR. These things can interchange in the body from one to the other, so you can also make compositional changes. So what are they banning? What are they trying?
Good question, and it's something I think goes to the heart of this argument. FDA, and I used this argument when I was there, relies on something called the active moiety when it comes to any sort of pharmaceutical. So the active moiety would just be NMN, which would cover, okay, beta NMN becomes NMN in the body. But then you get to the question of, well, wait a second, what happens between NR, which is okay and not? So yeah, there's some confusion around it. I would interpret, here's how I would, and again, we're not anyone's legal counsel, but I would interpret that if folks think that just by switching the names or things like that they're somehow scot-free, I would caution against that approach, right? Or switching the forms. I think FDA's intent is to cover all forms of NMN. I think they've said as much. But like I said, I think that given some of the arguments we've laid out, we're not done with laying out more arguments, but I think that that's what we're looking to reverse.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head there because there's a lot of people in this community, in the public, and in the comments that say, well, they'll get their drug form and we'll get this, or they're not banning all forms, they're only banning one form. That doesn't sound to be the case, folks. So
right.
Take your action. One of the notes I have here is remind people, guys, what they can do. Obviously, we want to thank I think it's 50,000, 60,000 have written letters you forwarded to Congress already. Where are we at?
Yeah. How many?
Yeah, so we're about 50,000 letters up to the hill. In terms of who is actually receiving these letters, it's everyone from the White House, the Vice President's office, and the Secretary of HHS, and then everyone on the House and Senate side for the United States Congress. So I would urge, if you haven't already, certainly visit the MPA Action Center so that way you can.
Jumping ahead a little bit, Kyle, what have the responses been from any of these agencies? Just acknowledged receipt, or did any of them, like, I shared a couple senators' responses to you from people's letters directly to them. What are we hearing?
So oftentimes what you're going to receive in terms of response is really just a form letter where they acknowledge that they've received your inquiry. They'll give you basically a paragraph of the history, which, I mean, why wouldn't you already know the history? So from a former staffer's perspective, I really don't know why that's always included there, because that's why you're reaching out, right?
Inefficiencies in government.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's really a letter.
Exactly. So it's really just an acknowledgement. Sometimes, depending on the committee that they sit on, they may get more into the weeds as to what they might do on the particular issue. So if, for example, you live in Mr. Duncan's district, he might follow up with a letter that mentions that he has inquired with the FDA on this particular issue. So it might vary from office to office, but oftentimes it's a formal.
Yeah, and Congressman Duncan's letter was, like, it stated a policy position. It wasn't just a formulated copy-paste response. It was, thought out, detailed. He went under the hood. He was at least informed. I'm sure you guys assisted him with some of that information and language, but wow, it's really well done. I mean, he put his name on something that I think said a lot to this community, not just the industry. I'm always, oftentimes we'll talk about the industry, the trade industry, because I know that's who you represent, but I'm talking about end users. Like, he scored a lot of points with us.
Well, and now it's important that, so much of it is staff, certainly the association helps out, but and that's the other thing you'll see at Flying is the staff really, and you'll see the Flying Day too, is staff has seen the letters. Staff will just, as soon as you bring up the issue, staff will be like, oh yeah, we've got those emails. And that's when you hit the target, right? I mean, it's one of the first questions when we do the training on the fly-in mornings. Ask them, hey, have you seen our letters on that?
They're all like passionate and,
Yeah.
hey, I mean, of course we want more. And guys, we want the letters. Your letters are stacking up. They're helping. The bottom line is this is driving. This is the fuel for the car right now. We're just trying to drive it as best we can, right? But that fuel is you guys. The letters is driving us, right? And along those lines, how do you envision this impacting other natural ingredients? I mean, I'm calling it a tripwire for the industry, for natural ingredients in general. But help share your feelings about that topic, because that does seem to be driving, motivating, like, these companies that are spending a lot in innovation and product development and bringing things to market, and they're uncertain, right?
Yeah.
About the future.
Well, and I think, Marcel, and this, I don't know if it's going to sound like a cliche, but this is the most important issue I think the industry faces for our future, right? Like you're effectively losing NMN is losing the ability to have new products, right? Especially with AI now. It's conceivable that somebody could go, look, I'm going to map every niacin metabolite ever, and I'm going to have AI also write an IND for it. And then we're out of the market. Now take that, apply it to every botanical on the planet, to every probiotic, to every peptide, and game over, right? So the industry would effectively be, no new products. That's really scary. And also, who's going to want to do research, right? There's no incentive to do research then, right? So yeah, health and wellness, no research. How's that going to go? That's not a party I think any of us would go to.
Yeah, some people think that, that I'm overstating the case, or that I'm saying the sky is falling. Good, guys, this is existential. Is what I mean.
It is
of your choice, folks. to make choices about taking natural ingredients that are in your food supply and literally supplementing those phytonutrients into your bodies and driving whatever health benefits you may or may not, but you should have the choice. That's what we're fighting for. That's why I do consider, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but it's great obviously to hear coming from you, Dan, and that this is huge, hugely important.
Yeah. It's not a safety issue at all, Marcel. I mean, this is really just about, hey, the agency is going to go to the mat for IP on the pharma side, and whatever costs that costs food, dietary supplements, novel ingredients that aren't pharmaceuticals, they're willing to burn that bridge. And that's not what we need from, our health authority.
And then I had a prioritizing question. Just like it seems like you've pushed this way out in front of some things. You're working on so much state issues. I don't know, people don't realize the amount of travel you do and the amount of lobbying you do beyond just Washington, that it's state by state issues that come up. And so you pushing this to the forefront, it's really, it also sends a message.
Oh, it's our board, it's our members, which you guys are. That's what drives the engines. I mean, I think that there's so much. And while we're not a consumer organization, we are grateful for the consumer's voice on this. Like Kyle said, the 50,000 emails, that's not the industry. That's consumers are going, hey, wait a second. And that's the thing. I think, and you capture that with your audiences. Look, people want a choice. Self-care is here to stay. People want that option in the marketplace. And
I love that. Hey, why did I miss that one? Self-care.
And unfortunately, more and more we're seeing self-care become under attack from whether it's the FDA or state legislators that just don't understand the dietary supplement industry. Unfortunately, it's not a threat that is going to go away.
I was speaking to a biochemist about the vitamin 3. We touched upon this a little bit, but it's vitamin B3.
Yes.
Specifically, this is a PhD biochemistry who's well connected to the circle of experts in this field and been in the field for multiple companies, large corporations for 30 years. We're going to be doing some interviews together. So this was sort of a pre-call situation. But what I will divulge is she said it's NMN is absolutely in the family of vitamin B3. It is just as much a vitamin B3 as niacin is, which is over-the-counter available as a vitamin everywhere. And we talked about, the micronutrient value of NMN, and you'll die without it. And she's confirming all of this. We need water, we need oxygen, we need NAD. You take away any of those three things, and you're going to die. How this is nope, you can't, you're going to die. You can't have it. And I'm not saying you won't have any NAD in your body without NMN, but just, a sip of water is not enough to get you through
right.
the day. You need an abundance of oxygen, you need an abundance of water. And in my view, and she concurred with this, you need an abundance of NAD in your body every day.
Yeah. And that's what's, you raise a very good point there. We're not, we don't drink water just to, so we die of dehydration, right? It has being properly hydrated. It has performance benefits. It has benefits for it. So similarly, right, cognitive, go down the line, every system. Similarly here, and I think what you're touching on, Marcel, is why is the agency going after something like this? Like that's something that should concern you. Something so essential to our health and wellness. Why is it?
Keep going on that thought, Dan. I mean, you've been public before, so I'm not asking you to say anything you haven't said, but speak to the agency in this. Give them some logic right here for anyone watching.
And the logic is something like that is so essential to our health, to healthy people's health. Why should it be treated something that is used for people who are sick? And why should it be completely excluded from the market for healthy people to stay healthier or get healthier? I mean, isn't that the goal, to prevent disease? It's not like we prevent disease by getting, we're just going to stay at a very sad level and kind of let it deteriorate. That doesn't sound like it's going to work. We need to optimize. And if we can't optimize, especially with the concept of personalized medicine, personalized nutrition coming online, how do you optimize when something's only going to be available through the pharmaceutical channel? How's that going to happen? So I think that there's a huge public health gap that the agency is ignoring. And also, what they're picking. Kyle also heads up our foundation, and he refers cases to FDA. Things like, here, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so anyone that's been in the dietary supplement industry knows that fortunately there are bad actors. One of the things that the foundation does, though, is we identify those bad actors and we bring them to the FDA and say, hey, look, we have identified potential products and companies that may on their face be out of compliance with the SHEA. Unfortunately, though, in a lot of cases, the FDA will just acknowledge the receipt, and then, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, those products are still on the list or on the market, excuse me. So I'm not really sure what the FDA is doing with that, other than acknowledging that they received my email. I don't know if they read it. I don't know if they give it off to someone else that is supposed to be responsible for taking these products either off the market or examining if they should be on the market. But when you look at things like SARMs, pro-hormones, and other adulterated dietary supplement products that are purported to be dietary supplements, and then you look at NMN, why have they prioritized a supplement with no
safety issues,
no
health
safety issues
Yeah.
whatsoever?
Right.
But they're not going to go after the 600 pro-hormones and SARMs we've identified by basic Google searches and have sent to the FDA.
Yeah, I mean, the priorities are so out of whack that you're going to target something that's essential for our health, right? I mean, like water, and yet ignore the things that are out there that are, clearly folks that are trying to skirt the law. And you go, wait a
God
second.
bless Josh Long, because he
Yeah.
asked for this very question in different forms and different wordings 5 times in his Supply Side East interview, and she failed to answer it a single time. Sorry, Kara Welch. I mean, this just,
And I'll just say this too: the FDA loves to talk about resources and how they are strapped for resources. It doesn't take long to identify products that on their face might be out of compliance with the SHEA. It's
Tell
a
them how to
simple.
do it. Tell them how to do it.
Google has an algorithm. We're all well aware of that algorithm.
Google.
Type in SARMs, you will find them. It's
They're going to
and the amount of
this card.
the
They're
amount
going to send you a card thanking you for this tip.
Yeah, but the amount of time they spend on NMN making problems for all of us on NMN versus what they
Thank
could
you.
have done public health wise is just, I mean, that's the real tragedy, and that's where people ought to get their hackles on. Go, wait a second, you're spending staff time, staff resources, just responding to Congressman Duncan's letter. Now you've got staff attorneys looking at responses to Congress versus going, hey, they're a law enforcement. So there are people out there breaking the law. And, we should get bumper stickers. I remember in the 80s, Marcel, you probably saw them. Kyle's too young, but skateboarding is not a crime. We need to get ones like, having NAD from NMN is not a crime. Like, we need to, right? It's like kind of inherent.
And some of these companies too, and I'll get off my soapbox after this, but some of them label it as the only legal pro-hormone on the market.
Right. Yeah. There's folks flouting the law. The agency turns a blind eye to that. They want to dig in. It's fine. It's a gross abuse of everything.
I am happy to make videos about the NMN fight and David Sinclair and you guys and DC, but I am tired of making videos about NMN and David Sinclair.
Understand? Yeah.
DC and Congressman Duncan. Love you guys. Happy to do it. Very tired of it. I know
right.
some fatigue on this, but they also, most of them realize, this is really important. Well, we need to know this.
Well, and you're right. And right now, I think we're all kind of like, you just scratch your head, right? Like a logical person, you go, wait a second. So there's this government agency that's targeting a form of vitamin B3, like what's added to Frosted Flakes, as a problem. And then there's real problems out there, baby formula. Look what they did on that. Oh, well, we'll get back to you. Or the commissioner's like, we lost it in the mail. It's like, okay, guys, like let's take a step back. I understand no agency wants to look like they're inept or anything like that, have eggs on their face and people have to save face. But at the same time, it's like, can we have a real conversation on this, to your point, Marcel? Because I think people are just fed up with this sort of approach that, hey, let's treat the folks, and the NMN folks are good actors, right? These are people investing in research. They're not just saying, hey, I found a chemical you know, I found I took a steroid and I made another chemical, and now I'm selling it. You're talking about people who have done research on NMN, have shown safety, have demonstrated incredible efficacy, and are treated worse than people who are selling steroids.
And even, we get into an NR-NMN debate, which I try to avoid because I'm a fan of both, and I have friends taking the other, and I had conversations just today from a big NR advocate, and I get it. It's cool. I'm all about it, right? But yeah, we're kind of all in this together, but even one of the biggest NR advocates that I know is Charles Brenner, who you know.
Yep.
He acknowledges very directly, very freely. NMN is a great NAD booster. It's one of the most established and accomplished biochemists on the planet, and he hasn't a dog in another race, frankly.
Yeah.
Still freely acknowledges the health benefits of NMN and that they're real, and that if people should decide to take it, they should do so.
Right. Well, and I think that's the point overall. It's like we're taking something that, any industry, right? You've got rule followers, you've got, the bell curve of the industry. NMN isn't on the negative side of the X or Y axis of the bell curve, right? NMN is on, and it's like, but it's being treated as if it's in that quadrant 4, right? That double negative, and you just go, come on, this is a ridiculous argument for the agency.
Is there any signals that they're getting? Are they starting to get it, or are there any oops at all, or they're just totally...
No, they're going to go down with the ship, I think, just like they did on anything. Which, you know what, that's okay, because I think that's one. It's critical because it shows the power of the voice that you've had, and everyone who listens to you, and everyone who's written Congress, and everybody who's, lack of a better term, really upset about this. I think that, and it's not just about being upset, it's about willing to do something, willing to stand up, willing to say something, right? Anyone can get upset and then it fades a minute later and you're focused on the next thing. But that constance of purpose, that's really the basis of the industry, is people wanted options for their care. And the agency, we take 2 steps forward and they want to, shove us back. And it's like, they want to keep playing that game. That's not a game they can win. It does, it does take its toll, like you said. There's fatigue.
Well, gentlemen, we'll leave it there for now. We'll convene next week in Washington. Looking forward to seeing you both in person. And Congressman Duncan, and please thank him for me. It's great that you guys are out there doing some pre-gaming, and enjoy it. Enjoy the golf. And
thanks, Marcel.
See you soon.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.